So tonight, I promised you a little bit of the Halloween vibe, and I got a few stories from people who wanted to share. I got some videos, but I don't know, man. I'm kind of a professional. I like to look at ghost videos and maybe maybe something, but I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's lens flare or what a lot of it is. And I've got some videos of things falling off shelves, and we could probably do that anywhere. Honestly, that if I could only tell you how much glass is falling off our stores. We had a video at one time where one of our managers, she opened up a case, and it was big stand up 360 case, and as she walked away, some way somehow this thing shattered in a million pieces. She was nowhere's near it. Now, was there moisture in the air? Was there some kind of vibration that did it? I don't know, man. I don't know what happened there. We have it on video, but we can't put anything ghostly to it. I don't know if it's an atmospheric pressure or some shit like that, and it just exploded. And that's happened more than once. It's happened more than once to us, with cases. And I don't know, man. It is what it is. That's like Joe Clark says. I know I reference him a lot, but it's true, man. It just kind of is what it is. When you're dealing with glass, things break. And at the end, I'll tell you a couple of our own personal stories. And whew, man, I got a few for you tonight. So buckle in, get you a little drinky drink. And hey, like this mood lighting, by the way, it looks pretty decent, doesn't it? You can even see the skull behind me, trying to make it spooky for you. Okay, so, with the season, all right, here we go. But now listen, this all came from smoke shops, uh, and most of them are still in business. Okay. So I'm going to tell it to you. And I talked to them on the phone. So I got the phone calls. I verified the story that they sent, and they told me a little bit more. Sometimes it was a whole lot more, you know, probably burn up a whole lot of work time and call time in order to be able to verify these stories. So I really hope you like them. And here we go. Okay, so this first one comes out of New Orleans at that, man. This is one of my favorite places to go to. And if you have never been, there's always a spooky vibe. I don't, but in the sunlight, it's not like that. But, when it gets to be nighttime, things are happening, things is happening down there, man. And I don't mean like, the ghosts are following you around, but, there's some shit going on down there, man. There's some stuff. But anyway, this comes from a place called Ghoulies, right? And she's a lady down there, and she's telling me, that they had owned the store for a number of years. Her uncle had owned it before she had. He got the feeling bad, and he could no longer come in and work it, so she took it over, and he basically gave it to her. It was kind of a blessing, she said, and a curse, because you're stuck to it. And we all in the retail know how that is. Said one night, said it wasn't even Halloween, man. It says like in August, September, still kind of warm, still very warm. And said that, but down there, and they're off the quarter. And so they're not right there in the main part of everything where all the tourists are walking around acting like jackasses, like we do when we go down there, right? And said that when they was, said that it wasn't even closing time, but it was in the air, it was dark. So we're talking after 9 o'clock, right? And said that she was in there by herself. Everything was everything, not a big deal. And said that she was looking, she happened to get something out of the corner of her eye, and she noticed it, that something was at the window, and said she looked and said something waved at her. Said she thought it was, somebody coming in. And so she waved back and she motioned for them to come in, and they stood there. And she thought, oh God, it's another drunk, and said, so she's like, okay, well, I'll just go back to what I'm doing here at the register, and they'll come in when they're ready. And said that she sat there for a few minutes and said she had almost forgot about them. And then she saw out of the corner of her eye some movement. And she had the way her building set up. It's like one of those old storefronts where there's glass on both sides, and then there's an indentation, like where you walk up into the building, but it's not quite into the building. Then there's a door, because here's some glass, and she's walking in, says she's watching it come, around the corner, and she's thinking, God, I'm going to deal with this drunk. What am I going to do? It's going to be horrible. And sitting, she's looking at it, and it's waving again. So she waves, hey, thinking, go away. She's telling me. And I said, well, Roxy, what'd you do? And she said, well, I finally just thought, well, screw it, I'm going to go to the door. Said, so she come out, and when she did, there was a box there, and she picked it up and she set it on the counter and went to the door, and said, then she started watching them walk back around to the where the glass was. Okay, cool. Maybe they're not coming in. So she said she kind of veered and, went and started, fixing some of the t-shirts and, straightening up, where the t-shirts was, and said, but she wanted to keep, an eye on them. So she moved around where she could watch them, and they went to the window, and they standing there. And then there was some people that was right behind them, and they kind of came and they walked in. And they walked in the door, and she says, hey, and they're like, hey, Roxy, we need a wrap, and, we need a couple of Rillos. Okay, cool. So she says, what is that guy out there doing? They said, what? That guy out front, man. He was standing there at the front window when you was coming through the door. And they're like, Roxy, what have you been smoking? She said, I'm not smoking anything. What are you talking about? She says, that guy that was right there as you all was coming in. Roxy, wasn't nobody out there. Said she turned to look, wasn't nobody there. And they're like, are you okay? And she's like, stop doing that. What, did you see that person? And they're looking at each other like, she said there was just no way they was playing. No way, because they were both very concerned. And, they asked her if, they want her to go, they want, them to go get her something to eat, or is there somebody they can call? And they were very concerned. And the woman didn't want to leave without making sure she was okay. And, are you here by yourself? Yeah. Do you want me to stay with you? Are you okay? Please let us call someone. And she's like, no, I'm fine. Maybe I'm just tired. I'd feel better if you called someone. I said she knew they was telling the truth. They was telling the truth. No one was there. So she calls her old man. They're not married. She says, hey, I need you to come up here. He goes, what's wrong? I don't know, but can you come up here? What's happened? So he tells her. She tells him. He's laughing, right? He's like, look, man. He goes, I don't want to drive up there for some bullshit. For real, I'm serious. And she's like, no, my customers are here. They don't want to leave until there's somebody up here with me. He's like, God, Must be for real. So he comes up there and he's checking on her. And he says, now what happened? And she tells him. And he goes, well, just check your cameras. Yeah. So they go to the camera and they're watching because, you know, you can. They said they had them trained towards the front of the building. You can clearly see out the door and everything, and you can clearly see out the windows and everything. And said that when she got there, and she got it to the point, you know, where she's supposed to have it, and said that nothing is in the windows, but you can clearly see Roxy waving. And I said, do you have that video? No. She said, we don't have that video. We changed security systems, and when we did, we lost the videos. You didn't download them. She goes, I didn't know how to download it. We just kept it there on the hard drive. And she said, then we could, you know, if we ever could pull it or something, I would. And she said, but my husband, he got very, very nervous, thought there's something bad wrong with this lady. I'm going to have to call somebody, a doctor or something. And she said, no, I'm telling you, I saw it. So they asked their employees and they said, yeah, this dude comes to the window all the time, waves at us, and then just kind of stands there. He's just a damn drunk. It's not a big deal. And they said, hey, did you ever see him in the videos? And no, why? Did you know him? And I said, well, how many people had seen it? And she's like, all my employees that work at night have seen it. I said, do you still see it? No, we don't see it anymore for some strange reason. She says, but what we did was we put perfs on the windows like you had said, and we put perfs on the windows. So now I guess the ghost can't see in. I'm like, wow, that changed everything for the ghost. I guess so, because it can't see us, but we could see it, but we're not seeing nothing. Great. That's scary, man. That's crazy. How would you even deal with that? They had all just believed that it is what it is, and said that, it was common occurrence. And I said, did you ever tell them the difference? And she said, no, I was afraid to. I was afraid to quit. And that I'd be working every night up here. Wow. That's wild. That's just wild. In my opinion, it's wild. Hey guys, I didn't know that you didn't know where to get those display cases. Displayarama.com has you covered. It's been an overwhelming response, but I just want to remind you, if you like that, look at this. What about this? How do you feel about these? And I love this. Hey, these cases are the same cases I have in my stores. So I just didn't realize you guys didn't know it, but now I do. So check them out, displayarama.com, family-owned business. They got all your showcase needs, and I totally endorse them. So our next one comes from St. Louis, and got a group out of there. They no longer own the store. They sent me an email, gave me a phone number, and they had told me the overview of it, told me if I'd call them, they could tell the rest of the story. And it's called Hoodsteaders. Yeah, Hoodsteaders. And which that must mean something to them in that area. I have no idea. And so I call them up and I said, hey, this Chad, blah, blah. Oh, hey, oh, yada. And I said, so what happened? He said that they had a head shop in an old home, and said it was set up into 4 different stores. And it was an old Victorian, and there's a walk up upstairs, there's a door, and said then there's a hallway, then there's a set of stairs, and the two halves upstairs was stores, and two halves downstairs was stores, and there was no more kitchens, no more. There's kitchenettes, where you could put a refrigerator and little sinks and things, but other than that, no kitchens. No stoves, nothing. I guess they were afraid somebody'd burn something down or something. He said they all had a little bathroom, a little sink, and that type of deal, but no shower, no nothing like that. So they said basically it was so that nobody could live in there. And he said, they had a small little 500 square foot, area there. And he had put, a smoke shop in there, just and at the time, they didn't have all that they have today. They were just starting the e-liquids and, said he had basically made a multiple vape shop thing where he had a lot of juices and a lot of, mods. And he said, they just had that type of thing. And that's the beginning of the whole e-cigarette thing. So they get involved in it. He says he's doing real well with it and everything. He said, and he's talking to his neighbors, and his neighbors are telling him all about the little kid running up and down the stairs. He said he'd never even experienced that. He said they close at 7:00 and he's never experienced that. And said the people upstairs were always telling him that they could hear him running up the stairs and then running down the stairs, running up the stairs, then running down the stairs. And he said, well, do they only do it at a certain time of day? And they said, no, it happens all the time. And the people beside of him said that, the stairs ran right up their wall and they could hear it. And he said, well, I don't have music or anything like that real loud in here. I wonder why I don't hear it. And he said that he started leaving the door open, to the outside, and he said it was, more welcoming for the customer. And they would leave the door open, and him and his wife would work it with him at nights. And he had told her about it, and she said, I've never heard none of that. I don't know what you're talking about. And said that they sat there with it and no, nothing. Said this went on for days. They were really excited, to hear this and, to get to see it, and didn't happen. So they were willing to chalk it up as a whole load of shit, right? Just a whole load of shit. And finally, man, they were coming out one night, and they had stayed. They were facing out, because when you had all those e-liquids, man, you had shelves and shelves and shelves full of them, and you would constantly turn them, because they had milligram strength, 0, 3, 6, 12, all the way up sometimes to 24, to try to get you off of the cigarettes, because that's what they were originally for. And lots of flavors, to really keep you on it, and you would basically work your way down to 0, and then you could just throw the damn thing away, because you was free of it. You was free because you had no milligram, and you was basically at that point just doing it out of habit, And so he said that they constantly had to go in and turn them, and said then they restocked the shelves, and it took a little longer than they thought it was going to. And said that, they had heard the other, people leave and go home, and said that some of them had said, hey, we're gone. Okay, good night, blah, blah, blah. Hope y'all get out soon. And they was kind of giggling, because normally he would get out and they would come down and he would already be closed. Said no customers, of course, had come. They'd already turned the, light off, the open sign off. And, of course, that would tell them that he was gone. And he said that they pulled the shade so nobody would see him in there and just wander in there because they had the door open. And said that when he came out, said they was locking up the doors and everything, and they heard rustling on the stairs, and they was looking at something at the very top of the stairs. A little bitty shape, just kind of sitting on the stairs. looking at him. They could make the outline of the side of its profile of its face. And he said his wife, she kind of took him by the arm and she goes, "Are you ready to go?" He said, "Yeah, I'm ready to go." And said she was pulling him towards the door. Said he still didn't want to take his eyes off of it, afraid it was going to come down and get him, the booger him out, Said he's staring at it and it's kind of sitting there. It's not moving. It's a shape like a human, but like a little human. He said he didn't know why he did it. He goes, "We're going to leave. Have a good night." And it just stood there. It just sat there and looked down at him, whatever it was. And said, and it kind of moved around a little bit and kind of leaned forward. And then he saw movement with its hand. What he assumed was its hand, like it waved. He said that was his cue to get the F out of Dodge. He said he closed the door, he locked it. He set the alarm from his phone. No, not his phone. He had a key fob. That's what it was. He had a key fob. And he set the alarm. He heard it, dee-dee. And he bounced. And they got in the car. And he looked over at his old lady and he says, "You saw that too, right?" She said, "I don't know what I saw, but that might have been a little boy. It was a little kid no matter what." I said, "What did you do?" I went home, and he says, and I opened, a bottle of Johnny Walker. And I had one hell of a drink. I didn't turn the TV on. I was just sitting there. And he said, and it changed my whole belief system. Right then and there. And I'm like, did you ever see it again? What happened? I never saw it again, he said. Never. And I was afraid to tell anybody I had ever seen it, because they'd only heard it, they said. But then I got to thinking about it. What if they're just like me and didn't want to tell it? Did you ever ask them? Hell no. I'm not having them talk about me like I'm crazy. I said, well, they probably felt the same way. He said, well, they'd been right if they'd told me and I'd never seen it. I said, but you did. I saw something. I just don't know what it was. Boom. That's the end of that. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if he believes it. She definitely believed it. He said she never spoke about it again, didn't want to talk about it. You couldn't get her to elaborate on it in any way. Said she saw no features. She just saw the outline. I don't know. Wow. That's nuts, right? That's nuts. Hey guys, did you really not know that I was an author? I mean, for real? It's for real, yeah. And international bestseller at that, in my category, believe it or not. So check it out. It's a quick read, man. It's not going to be such a big deal, but it's going to give you some real world stories about how I learned a whole lot about what I know. And I hope you guys will enjoy it. And you can pick it up on Amazon, and it's pretty easy to find. Just put in Street Smart, Chad Wade. It'll come right up. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I did writing it. All right, y'all. So this next one comes out of Hilton Head, right? And it's called the Head's Head Shop, right? And this lady, again, no longer owns this spot, and she's telling me that she likes to watch videos because she likes to, whenever we show the shop or anything, says she likes to watch the stuff that's in the shop, and said so. It reminded her, of when I asked about these things and put out the call for them, if you know, she was just going to tell me about it, and I could do with it as I please. They, of course, when they sold the shop, everything went with it, and said that. Of course, she has no proof, and she said so. Said she had no proof of it, but it's just a story. And she said that they had employees there, man, and they were kind of beach kids, and said that they was really good with the tourists and everything, and they was real cool with them. And said during tourist season it was just busy as hell, and said during off season, it was kind of hit or miss, whether anything like that was, people would come in or not. Said that it'd been a long night, and said that apparently it'd been slow, during the morning when they were there, the owners were there. And said, and after about 5 o'clock, they took off and left the two night kids there. And said, about 7:30, 8 o'clock, they called, and one of them was going to leave, and wonder if it'd be okay to leave the dude there, by himself. And said he'd been with them about a year, and he had his own key and everything. So yeah, sure, it'd be cool. Said he was kind of a de facto manager anyway, right? And said that we're going to call him Roger. Well, I don't know what his name is, to be honest. But so Roger's there by himself, and said, she would, go to, and she would check security cameras because she could watch them, and see, what's up. And, if there's anybody in there, if he's run over. Said they was, 15 minutes away. No problem to get there, if it was busy. And, she said, so she was prepared to do that just in case, and said that she looked in there, and he's not doing anything. He's sitting there, he's reading a book. And said, so she looks at the other cameras, and everything looks, straightened up, everything's put up, and doesn't look like there's a bunch of shit in the back that had to come out. So he had a book, and, it's cool. He's reading his little book, and said while she's sitting there on the camera, said she was taking a phone call, and she said, he just kind of watched whatever's on right there, and said she's yada, 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 talking to whoever. And said, and then, Roger gets up, and he puts his bookmark in, closes it, right? Said, and he stands up, and he walks around the front, and he's, talking to somebody. And of course, this is before you had, audio, security. And said that, you had the audio there, you just couldn't send it to you on Wi-Fi. Said that he's sitting there, and he's, apparently, talking to someone. And she said that she thought, oh my God, what has he done? And so she calls, and she says, hey, Roger, what the hell are you doing? He says, I got a customer right now, I can't talk. She says, what? Because she could see all the cameras, and there was clearly nothing in there. And she says, if there's something out of the camera view, just tell me no. He says, what? He said he's standing right here. He said, right here in front of the counter. Well, what's he looking for? And she says, well, he's telling me about, this, some things that up and down the town. He said, but I've never heard of this. Roger, are you okay? And he says, yeah, why? What's wrong? Have you had anything to eat? And he said, yeah. He said, I brought some chicken from home. Did you eat it? Yeah. Okay, she said, I'll stop in later. Okay. He goes, everything okay with you? And she says, yeah, I'm okay. He said, Carrie, are you okay? She goes, are you okay, Roger? And he's like, yeah, why? And he turns around, he looks right up at the camera and he's, what the fuck? And she's like, okay, okay. And she hung up. So then he turned around and, he's like, and he takes him over to the cases and, he's showing him some different water pipes and, and some things. And then he takes them back over and he punches in something into the register, right? And he puts his hand out, he gets it, and he said, it's correct change. And, he hands them, he puts their 1.5s, I think. No, 1.25s, JOB 1.25. And she said he set them down and said that, clearly, it was a sale because he picked up some matches, with the store name on them, put it right with them. She goes, he's going to steal something. Closed it up. Clearly could see his hands. Wasn't no big deal. So she tells her husband, and they drive up there, right? They come in, and they're looking at him. He's like, "What's up, y'all? What's going on tonight?" And he goes, "What's wrong?" He says, "What, Carrie? What happened?" And she says, "Who was your customer?" And he's like, "It's this old dude," and blah, blah, blah. He's telling him all about stores, things down there. And their husband had grown up in the area. Yeah. He remembered that building. Yeah. He remembered that gas station. Yeah. He remembered them pimento cheese sandwiches from this little store. Man, this kid wasn't but, 22, 23 years old. Said there ain't no way he remembered none of that. No way. He said, "What are you reading?" He said he thought maybe it was, a book about Hilton Head. And he said it was a Michael Crichton book. And he said, not like Jurassic Park. He said it was something else. And he goes, "Son, are you okay?" He put his hand on his shoulder. He goes, "What has happened?" And he says, "We were watching the camera and you was talking to thin air. And you made a sale to someone that wasn't there." He said, "My ass." He says, "I sold them some JOBs. I even gave them the matches like you told me." They counted the matches. So because, this usually tells them, who's worked there, how many people that they had, had as a, for customer count, if they wanted a quick count. There's a book missing. They did the inventory on the JOB. There's a book missing. They look into the computer and they can see a sale of JOB. She's like, "Listen, if you're just playing, tell me now, because I'm going to count this drawer, because I'm worried about you." He said, "I didn't steal shit." And he starts pulling out everything, didn't have a backpack or nothing like that. He's pulling out all of his pockets. He's wanting to unbutton his pants. And he's like, no, listen, calm down. Let's just count the drawer. And here's where it gets weird. They count the drawer down. With and including that sale, all the money is in there, including that sales. All the sales of the day are in the drawer. Ghost money. Pretty crazy, ain't it? He said that they had no answer for it. No answer. How'd the money get in there? Where did the JOB go? Where did the match go? The matches. You never see them leave the counter. he moves in front of the camera, in front of the JOB and the matches. She said they were gone. They were gone. Said he couldn't have been more than, 40, 50 years old, the old man, whoever the dude was. I'm 52. It made me feel real old. How'd the money get in there? And, she goes, I know, Chad, this sounds crazy. She says, and maybe between point A and point B, he pulled the money out and put it in the register, and maybe he put the JOBs up somewhere else, maybe. But I mean, how did he know when we were coming? How did he know we wasn't sitting there watching? More importantly, why don't we see on the video cameras that he put the money in the register out of his pocket? We saw it. That's pretty spooky. Now, I got no answer for that either, man. I don't have any answer for that whatsoever. I don't. Okay, everybody. So from time to time, I get asked about, hey, man, where should I get my cases? And do you know anybody? As a matter of fact, I do. So on my last live, we talked about it. I showed you, a one page, and it gave you a Chad Wade 5 would give you 5% off. And so I've got some more examples like these and these. How about this? And don't forget the oldie but a goodie, this. And I get these from Displayarama, and I like this company a whole lot. Family owned, and they got it going on. Don't forget, use the code ChadWade5 and get 5% off your total order. And I'm guessing you could use that multiple times, but order it all at once so that you can get it all at once for that 5% off. They'll even ship that all the way from Florida, Hollywood, Florida, as a matter of fact, straight to your front door of wherever you want it to go. This is a group you can depend on, and hopefully you will. So hit them up. I think it's displayarama.com, and check it out. They get my seal of approval. So the next one comes out of Ohio, right? And they've kind of asked me not to say the name, and the fellow's name is Ben, and he owns the shop to this very day. And Ben said that at the time, they had right at about 1,000 square foot. It's now more like 1,300 because they took some of the back room out and expanded it back. And said that one night, one of his employees gives him a phone call, and she's begging him to come up. Something's wrong. And he says, are you being robbed? Hit the panic button. She said, well, the police are already here. He goes, I'm on my way. So when he gets there, there's two cops, and they're standing out front, and they're asking to see the video. He said, well, he goes, okay, but can you tell me what's happened? Sir, we don't know what's happened. We have no idea what's happened, but she believes it, and she's scared, and she's going to quit. You're going to have a new employee. He says, but we need to see the cameras. And then he goes, well, what's happened? Well, apparently there's a child somewhere in your building. And if she's made a false report, she's going to jail. But she's adamant, and we believe her. Okay, cool. So he goes in and he asked her, and he said her name was Jennifer. Said little Asian girl, said Asian American girl. Jennifer, what happened? And right in front of the police. And she says, I've already told them And I've got to tell you, he said, she's just out of breath. He said, she's hyperventilating. She's scared. They're wanting to call an ambulance. She don't want an ambulance because she said she don't have any insurance. She can't pay for an ambulance. And she's breathing in and out into a bag. And she says to him, I was in the back of the room, and she says, I was bringing stock out. And she says, and when I brought the stock out, I heard the door open, and I went up front. Hey, welcome. And he asked me to say the name, and said that, said she's looking both ways. And he said, I would later be able to confirm all this. And said she goes to the very front. And she said, it had been a little windy, in the first part of the evening. Said, so she thought maybe there'd been a big gust of wind and it had blown the door open, said that's not unheard of, which, I've had that happen. So I know it's true. So she says, nothing, there's nothing there. She looks around. She says she just goes back and she's bringing the stock back out. Said she had 2 orders of T-shirts. So that's 2 different SKUs of T-shirts, different sizes. And says she brings them out, and she's in the very back corner. Says she's got the clothes hanger, rack, and she puts it down. She's pulling them. She's opening them up out of the bag. She's putting them in, and she's putting them, on the rack and everything. And said that she hears he. Said she turns around, looks underneath the racks, every direction, goes to the back. He says he could see her in the camera do it. The cops are watching it. And I said, please tell me you had video and audio. We did. Could you hear it? We could. Oh my God. She goes up to the front, and the front of their store is very open. It's full of incense. You would see anything and everything, right? She walks in and she looks. She looks. She looks. She can't see nothing. Nothing. She goes, God, she said, I'm stupid. I'm so crazy. I'm freaking myself out. And the cop tells him right behind him, he says, well, if she's freaking herself out, what do you think she's doing to us right now? She walks to the back. And he says, you can clearly hear a little nursery rhyme being said. And so the cops kind of look at each other and look at him. And he said, and she slowly starts looking around, throughout the store. This is a strip mall, man. It's not even, spooky, And said, so then she goes to her purse, gets a cigarette, walks out the front, and starts smoking. And you can see her in the window. And she's looking in the window, trying to see whatever it is. Said it's darker now. It's darker. You could see. She goes next door, and she comes back. And one of the guys, a great big dude, said he's from the bar. He's got this, the staff logo on. Said he comes in, looks around the store. He's kind of laughing, like this is all a bunch of shit, He goes, well, if you just want my phone number, just ask for it. And she goes, no, that's not what's happening here. And he goes, well, okay, but don't be weird. You're acting weird. And said, she's like, this is happening. And she's like, just forget it. Go back to work. Go on. He goes, all right, man. He goes, are you scared? Call your boss, And she said, I'm going to have to call him. And so she does. And you can hear him on the phone talking, right? And he said, I didn't get no phone call. I did not get a phone call. And he goes, and the cop goes, well, sir, who did she talk to? And he goes, I have no idea. I have no idea who she's speaking to. Because she's telling him, she's begging him to come up there. You know, she's scared, blah, 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 you know. And said, apparently, you know, on the other, and she's like, okay, I'll calm down. If this gets any worse, I'll call you back. Okay. So she hangs up and says, then you watch her look both ways, like she's watching someone walk in front of her, right? And said, clearly that's not what was happening. She wasn't acting like she was seeing it. She was acting like she was hearing it. So he goes and he's like, he turns around and looks at her and he says to her, what happened there? She says, I could hear it running up and down the room. And it would get further away, and then it would run right back. And then it would run right up and right back. She goes into it, went out the door. How do you know it went out the door? And then about that time on the video, the door goes, and it closed. And the cop goes, yeah, I believe it. Yep, we're good. We're good here. We're good here. We're good here. And he finally looked at the cop, you know, like he was stuck. And like he couldn't stop saying, we're good here. We're good here. You know, I mean, no matter how you feel about the cops, man, you know, you're always expecting them to be, you know, big badass dudes and, you know, scared of shit, you know, but something clearly scared these two jokers, this one joker anyway. And he says, ma'am, now he's here. I'm going to leave y'all to it. I don't think you were robbed, and I definitely don't think you're crazy. I'm sorry this has happened to you, ma'am, but this is not our field. And he goes, yeah. Well, thanks for coming, officers. And so they leave, right? They leave. And I mean, what the hell? And I said, well, what happened? And he's like, it never happened again. I said, well, was it like on a Halloween? And he's like, no. He said, you know, during the middle of summer. Okay. And he said, it never happened again. He said, she quit a week later. He says, and every time she comes in, she makes a joke about it, but she's always weirded out about being in there. And he said, I lost a good employee to a damn ghost. He said, I had to start working nights again. Hey guys, you're always asking, where do you get your display cases at? Try this out, displayorama.com. They got all you want. And a lot of those cases are in my shops. So if they're good enough for Chad, they're good enough for you. Hey, here's some examples, check them out. Here's one. Here's another. I like these slat walls. And then check this displays out. This is a family-owned corporation, boys and girls. They can be trusted. They're out of Hollywood, Florida. Beautiful, beautiful people, man. They can't wait to help you. They'll even help you set up the shop as far as where you should put them. They'll give you some measurements. They'll build it out. Give you some examples. What more can you ask for? Don't forget, use Chad Wade 5 at the end to get a total of 5% off your total order. Don't waste money. Use this group. You're gonna love them. I know I do. That's some good stories there. That's some real good stories. And, you know, I wish we had the video to back those up. That would have been wonderful. But the stories are good as well, really good as well. So, let me tell you a few myself. We had an old building, was our first building. It was, 5,000 square foot, building that we, I've told this story before. We could not afford to fill it. We could only, fill up the front part of it, and it had 2 doors. And as we added to it, we was adding cases, we was adding, supply all the way back. And then after a while, we basically, the other guy on the other side, he had an archery shop over there, and, he didn't need the whole thing. So we took part of it as well, and so we had quite a bit of space over there. We had, a lot of different products in there and everything. And, later at night, people didn't want to work there. They said they could hear weird shit all the time on Gary's side, the other side of the wall. And said it sounded like, they was having a small get together, not like, a keg party or nothing like that, but it was like you could hear people talking. Okay, man, whatever. That to me always sounded like I don't want to work nights. And so Brandon and I would work up there. And he would tell me, hey, I think they're full of shit. They just don't want to work here at night. They want to be off, at night. And okay, whatever. So we started working it, just for giggles. We started making more money too, because, nobody cares more about your business than you do. So we're in there and we're doing our thing. And the next thing you know, it kind of came up at the end of the night, things had slowed down dramatically. And, there'd be a customer here, customer there, and we didn't really have closing time hours, So once people stopped coming for a full hour, I'm like, well, hey man, I'm beat. Let's go. So we get to turning off lights, and Brandon, I noticed, started hot footing, trying not to be in the back. He's like, well, man, just don't want to be back there. I'm like, okay. And when I look back in the back from all the lights, I see the lights on in the back room where the kitchen area is. I said, Brandon, you didn't turn that light off. He goes, oh man, I forgot. I said, well, go turn the light off. He's like, oh man, you go over and turn that light off. I'm like, well, okay. I just come out of the joint, man. Okay. I've seen some horrible shit. So I walk across, and I'd cut down and go around and turn that light off. And then I locked it up. I locked up that door, and then I come back, and Brandon's kind of standing there within the shadow of the light of the front room, and we just stopped moving. And we're listening. And old buildings creak and pop and shit of that nature, right? But do they talk? Or mumble? Mumble's the word. And do they laugh? Because this building did. We could hear it. And then we walk over there, we're right against the wall, and we can hear the talking. We just can't make out what it's saying. So I run to the front, and I look out the front door, and, Gary's already gone. Nobody's over there. So I open the door to the back. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, come on. No. What is that? I'm like, I don't know. Let's go see. And I turned the kitchen light on, which goes into the next part of the building. And there's nothing. And I mean nothing there. Nothing there. Now, before you say, well, did you ever turn the light out and just stand there on the other side? No. No, I did not. So the next day, I'm starting to question, the other employees, and they're saying, yeah, it happens all the time, Chad. We can hear them over talking and laughing and cutting up, having the best time in the world. And there ain't nobody over there, man. There ain't nobody over there. I'm like, well, that's crazy, man, And so I'm thinking, well, that's just one time. And, I went back another time and yeah, that happened. That just kept happening. We could hear them, but we couldn't see them. But only if we was on our side of the building. So I chalked that up as being over by the interstate, because we were right by the interstate, right underneath the interstate as it came over the overpass. And we was downhill. And maybe that's just some kind of vibration. And maybe we think we're hearing something and we're really not, But are we all hearing it? All of us? Sometimes, was it a group dynamic thing? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But we heard it constantly. And, sometimes it'd be a whole lot. Sometimes it'd just be a little. And, some of the girls that work there could hear little kids running around over there and their little feet hitting the tile floors, and they could hear it very, very well. And I never heard that, but I did hear people talking and the weirdness that would go on around it. I don't know, man. I don't know. Something really odd was happening in that building. Really odd. So then, man, let me tell you another story. Let me tell you another good one, and we'll wrap this up, because we're going right into an hour. So Brandon and I used to love to go to this outdoor flea market, and we would always find these odd ass pictures. And we would hang them up on the wall, and it created all kinds of vibe, and it would create conversations, and they would always remark that, hey, my grandmother had that in her house, or my granddaddy had one of those, growing up, and my dad was always telling us about that picture and yada, yada, yada. Well, one day we found this picture. It's a little boy in, a little blue suit and oil print and already framed, very odd looking picture. And I thought, well, hey man, that'd be a cool little photo. And so, little picture. And so we hung that up, and people always commented on them. And so they said, do you know anything about that picture? And I'm like, no, and they said, well, wonder who that is. I said, oh, that's Timmy. And I just made that name up. I swear to God, I just made that name up. Right. Because at that time, South Park was a big deal, Timmy, and so I always thought that was a great name, and so Timmy had this, it was a very weird photo that when you would walk around, it would look like Timmy was watching you, and it was just the way it was drawn and everything. And so we was just jokingly, we would talk to it. We would tell it good night. We would tell it, see you in the morning, watch over everything, blah, blah, blah. And it was right behind the counter in the back wall. So when you walked in, Timmy could see you. Like Timmy was protecting us at all times. Like for real. We just didn't know how much. So one night, we had a break-in. We told this story about, the picture being haunted, and, Timmy was always watching out for the building. And since Timmy come in here, there was never any kind of problem and all this, right? So one night, man, we had a break-in. This was an old metal building, and they used these snips and cut out a big circle and wedged their way into the wall, pushed out the insulation, and just rolled in right underneath Timmy. And in the video, you can see them just grabbing for whatever they could get, just right there behind the counter, and trying like hell to get out of there. Like hell to get out of there. And like damn near fighting each other trying to get out that hole. Why? Because they hadn't broke, they wasn't out from, behind there, so the motion sensor hadn't hit. They didn't do the door, so they didn't break nothing. The alarm didn't go off. Why were they trying to get out? And I don't know the answer to it. I don't know the answer of why they were trying to get out so bad. But they had come in right underneath Timmy, and they were looking up at Timmy. Then they were trying like hell to get out of the way of Timmy. They stole very little and made a hell of a racket and a hell of a lot of damage. So did Timmy stop them? But it sure made the legend of Timmy that much bigger. So much, in fact, that when that building got tore down, we made sure Timmy went with us. We stuck him in the back part of the building, of the new building. And Timmy always likes to be talked to when the staff would go back there, and they would always say, "Hey, Timmy, I'm just doing this, just doing that, yada, yada, yada." And they said they always felt like Timmy was watching them. Even if they were just up into the cigars, they always felt like there was eyes on them. Is he still watching out? We like to think so. All right, everybody. Well, that's what I got, man. And hopefully, you've enjoyed these stories as much as I've enjoyed telling them. And maybe next year we'll even get more. Maybe I hope so. And if I get any more between now and Halloween, because it's the 28th, and hopefully I will. But if I do and I can verify them and get more, to it, I'll try to get them put out really quick and see what I can do for us. All right, y'all. Well, look, if you don't hear from us, happy Halloween. And we've had a hell of a good time with it. And hope you've enjoyed the ambiance. All right, y'all. Talk to you later. See ya. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween.